The Sonic the Hedgehog movie is pretty much exactly what you would expect it to be after watching the very first trailer, except that Sonic actually looks like Sonic now. So TLDR, I guess it's not very good. At least I didn't think so. It's not terrible, I didn't hate it. I could definitely see a lot of young children enjoying this film, and I would probably have liked it myself if it had come out when I was around 10. I was a pretty big fan of Sonic when I was a kid. I played basically all of the games that came out through around the mid-2000s. I think the last one I played was Sonic Heroes, and I watched at least 2 or 3 of the cartoon series. This is still probably one of the better films based on a video game series that's ever come out. It's way better than the live-action Super Mario Bros. Movie, but my overall impression of the thing is that it was just kind of bland, which is disappointing to me because I think that it could have had the potential to be a lot better. But first, some good things. They did a really good job translating the character of Sonic the Hedgehog onto the big screen. His voice, provided by Ben Schwartz, as well as his general demeanor and attitude, is spot on. There were a bunch of sequences where you see Sonic doing the same types of stuff that Quicksilver did back in the X-Men prequels, you know, like playing ping pong and baseball against himself, as well as taking out entire rooms of people or robots at super speed set to the tune of a song while everything else on screen appears to be moving in slow motion. That stuff was all cute, and it's exactly what you would expect to see in a Sonic movie. I do wish they'd taken another pass at some of the comedy, however. Not many of the jokes landed for me. They put the funniest joke in the movie right there in the first trailer.
Do you have your child in that bag?
No. I mean, yes, it's a child, but it's not mine.
And the only other joke that got more than a few chuckles out of anybody in my theater was when Sonic does the Fortnite meme dance. You know, the same one that Shazam did in the Shazam movie. God, I'm almost 30. Basically, the plot here is that when Sonic was a child living in the cartoony Sonic universe, he was ambushed by a tribe of echidnas who hated his super speed powers for some reason, forcing him to escape into the human world where he's been living in hiding ever since. However, after some shenanigans, Sonic loses his bag of magic rings, the method by which he's able to transport between worlds, and he has to team up with a local police officer played by James Marsden in order to get the rings back, while also evading capture by Dr. Robotnik, played by Jim Carrey, who's after Sonic because the Hedgehog's body is apparently an infinite source of energy that Robotnik wants to harness for the purpose of mad science. And this is pretty much exactly what I was afraid of when I first saw the trailer. I made a video back then where I argued that the problem with this movie, the reason it looked so bad in the trailer, wasn't so much Sonic's awful redesign. I mean, that certainly didn't help, but the biggest problem was that such an inherently cartoonish concept should never have been made into a live-action movie to begin with. Sonic should have been brought to the big screen in a heavily stylized animated film, which would have given it a lot more room to cut loose with all of the franchise's most ridiculous cartoony imagery and subject matter.
Well, I don't see the appeal.
Instead, we wound up with this extremely generic fish-out-of-water buddy comedy film. Yes, Sonic's finalized design here is way better than the original one seen in the first trailer, but a better design does not necessarily make a better movie, and I feel like a lot of people have been conflating those two things. In fact, I would even go so far as to say that this movie would have probably been a lot more memorable and much funnier if they had kept the original design. Like, if I'm not gonna be able to laugh with the movie, I would have at least liked to laugh at it, you know what I mean? While this may have been the better of the two on paper, absolutely nobody, aside from perhaps its youngest fans, will still be thinking or talking about this Sonic movie 6 months from now, whereas the live-action Super Mario Bros. Movie I mentioned earlier will never ever be forgotten. None of this movie's human characters are really here for any other reason except to justify the movie being in live action, and I found all of them either boring or irritating. James Marsden, typically a deep well of charisma, has absolutely nothing to work with here, and I really didn't like Jim Carrey either. I have no idea why everybody else seemed to think he looked good in the trailers, although if you were one of those people, I guess you'll probably still like him in the finished product because it's just more of the same, but I personally thought he was extremely annoying.
The doctor thinks you're basic.
Oh, and that one part in the trailer where he actually resembles Robotnik is basically a post-credit scene. Furthermore, because Sonic is really the only CGI cartoon character you ever see in this otherwise mostly realistic-looking setting, I found it very difficult to suspend my disbelief and convince myself that I was looking at a real physical creature rather than something that was just created on a computer. This is in contrast to, say, Detective Pikachu, which offset how jarring the cartoony Pokemon might have looked against real people by setting the film entirely in a fantasy world with dozens of little CGI Pokemon Pokemon characters running around in the background constantly. I will say that in the last 10 minutes or so, when Sonic is being chased around by Dr. Robotnik in a little hover plane that Sonic has to jump on top of a bunch of times to destroy it, it genuinely did start to feel like what a big set piece in a Sonic movie should feel like, but it just made me wish the whole movie could have been a lot more like that. Look, I already know that I'm setting myself up here to get a bunch of hate from people who like this movie more than I did, and if you like the movie, that's cool, all power to you. I honestly just thought it was kind of dull.
Nobody cares!
But if you like this video, you could help me out a lot by hitting that like button, subscribing if you're new, and ringing the bell to stay up to date on all of my future stuff. Leave a comment down below letting me know any of your thoughts on Sonic the Hedgehog, and check out some of the other great stuff I've got up here on my channel. As always, thanks so much to all of you guys for watching, and take care.